The first believers. In January 2009, an anonymous figure called Satoshi Nakamoto released Bitcoin, a new kind of digital money. In the beginning, Bitcoin wasn't just a technology or investment. It was a mission. Early adopters weren't typical Wall Street investors. They were believers with almost evangelical zeal. In forum posts and meetups, they spoke about revolutionizing finance and liberating money from banks. They even had a patron saint of sorts, an early investor named Ruja Ignatova, nicknamed Bitcoin Jesus for spreading the gospel of Bitcoin. To his flock of fellow enthusiasts, Bitcoin was more than code. It was a cause. By 2013, the price of Bitcoin had surged from fractions of a penny to over $1,000. This meteoric rise only strengthened the faithful. Every spike was seen as vindication, every crash a test of conviction. In online forums, a new mantra emerged: HODL, hold on for dear life. It meant never sell, no matter how chaotic the market, because true believers trust the vision. Friends and family called them crazy for clinging to volatile coins, but the Bitcoin faithful laughed it off. They saw things differently. If you understood, you belonged. If you doubted, you were an outsider. What started as an investment was becoming an identity. Critics began to notice the almost religious fervor. The Financial Times warned of a growing cult of crypto, citing the classic hallmarks of cult behavior: apocalyptic expectations, promises of utopia for true believers, the shunning of critics, and the denouncement of heretics. And indeed, many Bitcoiners talked about the coming financial apocalypse, the collapse of fiat money, and a utopia where Bitcoin would reign. To those in the know, this future was inevitable. Detractors were labeled as ignorant or biased. In 2011, when Satoshi Nakamoto vanished without a trace, speculation swirled like messianic prophecy. Would he return one day? Some spoke of Satoshi in reverent tones, as if he were more prophet than programmer. Bitcoin had given birth to a new kind of faith-based investing, one where belief often trumped logic. This was the dawn of identity investing. Being a Bitcoiner meant belonging to a tribe that believed they were changing the world. It felt empowering, exhilarating, even righteous. But that powerful mix of hope and tribal loyalty was a double-edged sword. Bitcoin's early congregation showed how strong the pull of belief can be, and soon, others would learn to weaponize that devotion for their own ends. The Crypto Queen and her followers. A glamorous woman in a ball gown takes the stage at London's Wembley Arena. She introduces herself as Dr. Ruja Ignatova, and she speaks with unwavering confidence about a coin that will eclipse Bitcoin. She calls it OneCoin, the Bitcoin killer. Thousands of people roar with approval, transfixed by this self-proclaimed crypto queen. To her followers, Dr. Ruja isn't just selling a cryptocurrency. She's offering salvation from poverty and a chance to be part of a financial revolution. OneCoin's rise was nothing short of cult-like. Dr. Ruja cultivated devotion with a careful script. She told her followers they were the chosen ones who hadn't missed out like those Bitcoin early birds. OneCoin was a second chance for everyone who felt they'd been left behind. The pitch was seductive. Join us, and you join a family of believers riding the next big wave. They held extravagant conferences with pumping music, slick videos, and slogans of empowerment. New members were love-bombed with praise and success stories. Every newcomer was welcomed as if joining an exclusive club destined for greatness. And any doubts? Those were brushed aside. Ruja warned that outsiders and jealous competitors, haters, she called them, were spreading lies. Legitimate warnings from journalists and regulators were dismissed as attacks by people who don't want us to succeed. You either believed in OneCoin or you were the enemy. Behind the scenes, OneCoin was a sham, a classic pyramid scheme with no real blockchain at all. But to the thousands who invested, logic didn't matter. In city after city, ordinary people handed over their savings, convinced they were on the winning side of history. By the time authorities began to catch on, OneCoin had drawn in an estimated 3.5 million users and as much as $4 billion in funds. It didn't matter that skeptics called it snake oil, or that some tech experts pointed out the math didn't add up. Belief had taken hold. Then, in late 2017, Dr. Ruja vanished. She boarded a plane in Sofia and never showed up to her next event. OneCoin's offices were later raided, its operations exposed as fraud, and Ruja Ignatova became a wanted fugitive. The OneCoin empire was collapsing. Investors were devastated, savings gone, trust broken. And yet, incredibly, many refused to let go. In the aftermath, some die-hard followers insisted Dr. Ruja's disappearance was part of a grand plan. Others floated conspiracy theories that the bankers or governments took her out to stop OneCoin's rise. Even as leaders were arrested and the coin effectively died, pockets of believers kept the faith. OneCoin is real, they would argue on forums and Facebook groups years after the scam was revealed. Some victims simply couldn't accept the painful truth. They still clung to the hope that their crypto queen would return to lead them to the promised financial utopia. Hype, belief, and collapse. Around the same time OneCoin was peaking, another crypto cult was forming. This one not led by a single glamorous leader, but by the fervor of a community. If OneCoin was a pyramid built with charisma, BitConnect was a bonfire fueled by pure hype. Launched in 2016, BitConnect promised something irresistible. Unbelievable investment returns, guaranteed. Its promoters said you could turn a few $1,000s into a fortune by lending your money to BitConnect's trading bot. All you had to do was believe. And of course, recruit a few friends to join too. BitConnect spread like wildfire on YouTube and social media. Enthusiastic investors, some just everyday people with no finance background, posted videos bragging about daily profits. They held rallies that felt like motivational seminars. In one now infamous event, a man named Carlos stormed the stage shouting with jubilance. His voice echoed with the fervor of a preacher at a tent revival. "I am right now independently, financially independently," he cried, claiming BitConnect had made him free. He laughed at the naysayers who called it a scam, waving off their warnings just as the OneCoin faithful had. The crowd went wild. To attendees, this wasn't just an investment conference. It was a celebration of a shared faith in the power of BitConnect. By late 2017, BitConnect's coin was skyrocketing in value. At its peak, the BitConnect coin had a market capitalization of about $3.4 billion. Entire online communities were devoted to it, preaching the gospel of financial freedom. People poured their life savings, even mortgaged homes, into the platform, lured by the dream of retiring in months. The groupthink was intense. On Reddit and Telegram, any post suggesting BitConnect might be a Ponzi scheme was attacked or ridiculed. Believers confidently told skeptics that they just didn't understand this revolutionary system. Inside the echo chamber, it felt like BitConnect could do no wrong. But it was all an illusion. In truth, there was no magical trading bot earning outsized returns. BitConnect was shuffling new investors' money to pay old investors. In early 2018, reality caught up. Regulators in Texas and North Carolina hit BitConnect with cease and desist orders, and almost overnight, the scheme imploded. The company announced it was shutting its lending program, and the value of BitConnect's coin plummeted over 90% in a matter of days. In chat rooms that once brimmed with triumph, chaos, and despair took over. Some investors refused to believe it was ending. They clung to promises that BitConnect would be back in a new form. But as weeks passed, denial gave way to grief. Many had lost everything. There were reports of people sinking into depression, families torn apart by financial strain. It was a harsh lesson. The same hype that lifted them up had led them to a catastrophic fall. In the wreckage, even as lawsuits and FBI investigations began, a core of believers still defended BitConnect. A few asserted that if everyone just held on, the coin's value would return. Others placed blame on fear, uncertainty, and doubt spread by enemies, rather than on the impossible promises they'd believed. But BitConnect never recovered. Its founders and top promoters would face indictments and guilty pleas for fraud. For most investors, BitConnect became a painful memory, a cautionary tale of hype run amok. Yet the pattern it exemplified was far from over. Modern prophets and the cult coin. Even after notorious scams like OneCoin and BitConnect, the cycle continued. By 2019, a new figure was rising in the crypto world, one who had clearly learned from these past episodes. He wore designer suits, draped himself in luxury jewelry, and spoke to his online followers for hours as if holding court. He was Richard Hart, and the coin he created was called HEX. To critics, HEX had all the markings of a cult coin. To its devotees, who proudly called themselves hexicans, it was a ticket to financial freedom and a community where they finally felt they belonged. Richard Hart presented himself as a mix of tech guru, self-help coach, and provocateur. He touted his Mensa-level IQ and his early Bitcoin riches as proof of his genius. He wasn't humble about it either. He demanded respect and even a bit of worship from his followers. On YouTube live streams, he would brag about his expensive sports cars and million-dollar watches, positioning himself as the ultimate success story. And his followers lapped it up. They saw him as a visionary who dared to flaunt wealth while promising to share the secrets of attaining it. If earlier cult-like coins painted their leaders as saviors or revolutionaries, Richard fashioned himself as a flamboyant messiah of money. Relatable enough to attract an audience, yet mythic enough to inspire devotion. Hex's mechanism itself deepened the commitment. Investors were encouraged to stake their Hex tokens, locking them up for long periods, sometimes years, in return for high-interest payouts. The effect was powerful. Once someone locked their money into Hex, they had a strong incentive to believe in the project for the long haul. Psychologically, it bound the faithful to Richard Hart's success or failure. If anyone criticized Hex as a scam, the Hexicans would pounce, armed with talking points from their leader. Detractors were just bitter or jealous, they insisted. On social media, Hex followers formed a tight-knit pack, amplifying each other's posts, celebrating each other's staking sacrifices, a term they used unironically, and ruthlessly attacking non-believers. It all felt eerily familiar, an us versus them fortress built around an investment. As Hex's price shot up in the 2021 crypto boom, the community's confidence grew into outright euphoria. Hart's followers boasted of 10,000% gains and financial liberation. They called Hex the best investment ever, and Richard Hart, the man who made it possible. But like those before, Hex's fortunes turned. By late 2022, HEX had fallen dramatically, at one point over 90% down from its peak. When regulators and authorities started circling, accusing Richard Hart of fraud and even listing him on wanted lists, outsiders expected the cult to crack, yet the core believers held strong. If anything, the pressure from authorities reinforced their narrative. The system was just out to get their visionary leader. Hart himself claimed he was being persecuted because he had raised money to help others. He often reminded everyone about millions he raised for medical research. In the eyes of his devotees, these accusations were just another test of faith. They doubled down in online forums, certain that HEX would rise again and prove all the haters wrong. Hex is just one example of the modern cult coin phenomenon. In recent years, there have been other coins and communities exhibiting similar fanaticism. From meme coins with armies of followers who tweet in unison, to fringe projects that promise paradise and deliver disaster. The platforms may be different: Discord chats, Twitter memes, YouTube live chats, but the psychology is the same. Charismatic figures, extravagant promises, a loyal tribe rallying against a common enemy, and an emotional story that makes people feel special for being early or chosen. Technology evolves, but human nature doesn't change so easily. Inside the cult mind. What makes smart, ordinary people fall into these crypto cults? To an outsider, it's baffling to see investors ignore obvious red flags. But inside the bubble, powerful psychological forces are at work. These go beyond greed. They tap into deeper human cravings, belonging, identity, and hope. Love bombing. Cult experts often talk about love bombing, where new members are overwhelmed with affection and praise. In crypto, this tactic thrives on social media. Join a new coin's online community, and you're met with a flood of warmth. Welcome, you're going to make it. New investors are celebrated as future millionaires just for buying in. On Telegram groups and Reddit threads, believers cheer each other on constantly. This creates a glow of acceptance and excitement that can cloud anyone's judgment. You feel like you've entered a family that truly cares about your success. Us versus them. Every cult needs an enemy, and cult-like crypto communities are no different. Leaders and insiders craft a story that we, the believers, have special truth, while they, the outsiders, are trying to tear us down. In OneCoin, anyone who questioned the scheme was a hater or a pawn of the banks. In Bitcoin's early days, doubters were no-coiners who just didn't get it. With BitConnect, critics were ridiculed as people who'd miss out on the opportunity of a lifetime. This narrative does two things. It unites the community against a common foe, and it insulates them from criticism. If government regulators crack down or journalists publish exposés, the community frames it as proof that the outside world fears their success. Reality gets flipped on its head. Warnings are seen not as helpful, but as attacks to defend against. Exclusivity and secret knowledge. Cults often claim to have special knowledge reserved only for the initiated. Crypto cults play a similar card. Complex white papers, insider lingo, and members-only channels create an aura of mystique. If you understand it, you feel like part of an elite club that's smarter than everyone else. When Dr. Ruja spoke of OneCoin, she peppered her talks with tech jargon and her PhD title to impress the crowd. She made her followers feel they were learning secrets of wealth no one else knew. Likewise, Richard Hart touted his brilliance in mastering blockchain code. implying Heck's followers were on the side of a genius. Emotional promises. The most powerful hook isn't the technical or financial promise, it's the emotional one. Cult coins promise a better life and a better world. They sell hope. Hope that you can provide for your family, escape the 9-to-5 grind, and fulfill dreams. Hope that you're contributing to something meaningful, not just making money. In promotional videos and Twitter threads, these projects frame buying a coin as participating in a movement. We're not just investors, we're freedom fighters, innovators, visionaries building a new future. That narrative gives people a profound sense of purpose. It's no longer about what you're buying, it's about what you believe in. And once someone ties their personal dreams and moral purpose to a coin, it's no longer a simple investment. It's a part of their identity and soul. Combined, these tactics create a powerful cocktail. Psychological manipulation isn't always malicious or organized in these spaces. Sometimes communities evolve to use these tools organically. But whether by design or accident, the result is the same. Critical thinking erodes. Red flags are rationalized away. Warnings from friends are brushed off with, "You just don't understand what I understand." And as the group bonds tighter, individual doubts are smothered by collective confidence. It feels good to believe, to belong, to imagine that you found the golden ticket. As one observer noted, people don't join cults because they're weak. They join because they're human. The crypto cult experience delivers belonging, identity, purpose, status, and certainty, all wrapped up in one shiny coin. Who wouldn't want that? When the dream dies. Sooner or later, financial reality strikes. The coin crashes, the leader disappears, the regulators intervene, or the math simply stops working. The dream dies. But for many true believers, letting go is not so simple. The aftermath of a crypto cult collapse is its own painful chapter. One filled with denial, heartbreak, and sometimes defiant faith in the face of all evidence. In the wake of OneCoin's unraveling, entire online support groups formed for people who lost money. Some were filled with anger and confusion. How could we have fallen for this? Others, however, turned into echo chambers of denial. Even with their savings gone and their leader a fugitive, believers found ways to justify it. A common refrain was, "OneCoin is real, it's just been delayed." In some communities, victims latched onto any rumor that Dr. Ruja was secretly working on a comeback, or that a new management would make things right. It was easier to nurture a faint hope than to face the shame and pain of being duped. Stories emerged of families torn apart, one spouse still insisting OneCoin would pay out, while the other begged them to move on. The cognitive dissonance was strong. Admitting the truth meant admitting that not only the money, but the meaning behind it was gone. And that was too much for many to bear. Those who had recruited friends and relatives into the scheme often felt a crushing guilt. One OneCoin promoter confessed anonymously that he was hiding from the very people he'd signed up, unable to face them now that it all had collapsed. The shame of having led loved ones into a trap was overwhelming. Some went silent and disappeared from their social circles, compounding the cult-like secrecy with a real-life isolation. It's a tragic irony. The community that gave them belonging ended up leaving many in loneliness and regret. After BitConnect's crash, we saw a similar fallout. Social media that once flaunted wealth and lambasted skeptics filled with cries for help. Has anyone heard from the BitConnect team? Is there any chance to recover our funds? Desperate questions with few answers. Lawsuits were filed. and a few leaders arrested, but that did little for the average person who had to tell their family that the money was gone. Some still held onto their BitConnect tokens for months, refusing to sell at near zero prices, a symbolic gesture of clinging to hope. Others jumped to the next dubious scheme, chasing a way to fill the void BitConnect left. They became wanderers in the crypto world, perhaps a bit more bruised, but still searching for that community and promise they lost. Even in the HEX community, as controversies and investigations mounted, a faction of followers stayed loyal. They attacked the SEC and other agencies as corrupt, doubling down on the belief that their coin and leader were being unfairly targeted. On message boards, one could find comments like, "We will outlast this." HEX is stronger than ever. They can't stop an idea whose time has come. In the face of damning evidence, the faithful often resort not to analysis, but to affirmations. They tell themselves stories to keep the faith alive, no matter how unlikely. The psychology is akin to devotees awaiting a prophecy, unwilling to accept that the prophecy failed. For many victims of these crypto cults, the financial loss is devastating, but the psychological fallout is even worse. They must grapple with a shattering of trust in others, but also in themselves. They ask, "How could I have been so blind?" It's a heavy burden that can last years. Some do find a way out of the darkness. They connect with other victims, share their stories, and rebuild a sense of community based not on blind hope, but on mutual support and hard lessons learned. Yet, heartbreakingly, others remain stuck in the past, their identities so intertwined with the dream that they continue to wait for a vindication that never comes. Why does this keep happening? Why do crypto cults keep emerging again and again? Why do we never learn? The answer lies not in the novelty of cryptocurrency, but in something timeless, our human hunger for meaning and hope. These stories, Bitcoin's rise, OneCoin's deceit, BitConnect's hype, Hex's loyal following, are less about technology and more about people. It's about the void that traditional institutions and society often leave, and the way a compelling story can fill that void almost spiritually. In an age of economic uncertainty and technological upheaval, cryptocurrency offers a seductive narrative. It says, "The old system has failed you. Here's a new one. Trust it, join us, and you'll be rewarded." For those who feel left behind by globalization, or crushed by debt, or simply disillusioned with the status quo, that promise is powerful. It's not just greed for riches. It's the appeal of being part of something big, of taking control of one's destiny, of finding a tribe that feels like home. When a cryptocurrency community starts to feel like a movement, it can become almost religious in its allure. The coin itself is like a totem, a symbol of belief. People aren't just buying a coin, they're buying a story, a vision, a piece of identity. Modern internet culture pours fuel on the fire. Social media algorithms reward extreme enthusiasm and bold claims. Hype spreads faster than fact checks. By the time reality catches up, thousands may have already drunk the proverbial Kool-Aid. In online spaces, a talented scammer or an influential personality can orchestrate a following with far less oversight than in the physical world. And once a narrative catches hold, "This coin will save us, this leader will make us all rich," undoing it is like trying to convince the devout that their religion is false. Logic seldom wins against an emotional narrative that fulfills deep needs. And so, the cycle repeats. New coins emerge, new communities form, each convinced this time is different. Bitcoin itself, despite its cultish fringes, proved resilient and real in its own way. But the dark side of this fervor keeps resurfacing too. The names change. OneCoin, BitConnect, Hex, and countless smaller cult coins that briefly flare and fade. Yet the core pattern remains. Visionary narrative, fervent believers, ignored warnings, painful collapse. The lesson in these stories is not that crypto or technology is evil. It's that unchecked belief can be exploited anywhere, in any era. It's a reminder to all of us to ask hard questions, especially when something sounds too good and taps into our yearnings. It's a reminder that healthy skepticism can save fortunes and futures. And it's an appeal for empathy too. Those who fall for these crypto cults are not fools on the fringe. They are our friends, our family, maybe even ourselves under the right circumstances. They are people who wanted to believe in a better life, a cutting-edge idea, a chance to matter. As long as hope and greed exist, there will be new crypto queens and new charismatic prophets of coin. There will be fresh promises of paradise in blockchain form. And there will be those who believe with all their hearts. It keeps happening because the formula speaks to something profound in the human condition. The need to believe in something, to trust in a brighter tomorrow, to find fellowship and purpose. Unfortunately, that very impulse can lead us to leap before we look. In the end, the story of crypto cults is a cautionary tale as old as humanity dressed in 21st century clothes. It asks us to remember that when money, technology, and faith mix, the line between innovation and illusion can get very thin. It challenges us to seek the truth beneath the hype and to hold on to our critical thinking, even when the crowd is chanting in ecstasy, because the crowd's chant can quickly turn into a cry of anguish, and by then, it's too late. The next time you hear the roar of a promise promising everything, take a step back and listen carefully. Is it a revolution, or just the seductive echo of another cult in the making? The difference isn't always obvious, not when you're in the middle of the crowd, heart pounding with hope. Perhaps the safest investment of all is to never surrender your judgment, even when belief burns bright. It's a hard lesson learned from the ashes of crypto cults. In a gold rush, faith can be more dangerous than any scam. And yet, despite all the disasters, the lure of that faith ensures that somewhere right now, it's starting all over again.